In a quiet, sun-drenched bushland just outside the village, Chickadibia stands confidently on a patch of flattened earth. He's barefoot, wearing dusty shorts, and his small frame is wiry but powerful. His expression is intense and focused, a miniature warrior and teacher. Facing him is Peter, his chubby new friend, bigger in size but uncertain in spirit. He's sweating, his shirt clinging to him, trying to mimic Chickadibia's low wrestling stance. His movements are clumsy but earnest. His face shows confusion, but his eyes are locked on Chickadibia's, eager to learn. Surrounding them are thick bushes, sparse trees, and scattered leaves. No crowd, no distractions. Just nature, determination, and sweat. A few birds chirp in the background. This is their secret training ground. Chickadibia demonstrates a takedown move, showing surprising skill and discipline. He speaks with authority as he instructs Peter with the air of a seasoned coach. Despite their age difference, the difference is clear. Chickadibia is the master, and Peter is his student. A few weeks later, there was a wrestling match, and Chickadibia had already asked Peter not to participate in order not to raise suspicion due to the many tactics he had taught him. They stood amongst the crowd and watched as the wrestling began. Some hours later, the winner of the wrestling match was announced, and Ease was pronounced the winner. And under the golden hue of the setting sun, Ease, bare-chested and glistening with sweat, stood tall, a crooked but confident grin on his face. His muscles still pulsed with energy from the intense wrestling match he had just won. Around him, the crowd dispersed slowly, murmuring admiration and clapping in awe. A short distance away stood his father with a wide, prideful smile stretching across his face. Ease, still catching his breath, turned to his father and declared with boldness, "Father, I told you. Nobody can bring me down. I am the champion, undefeated." His father chuckled, his chest swelling with pride. "My son, you fought like a lion. Just like your grandfather. The strength of our blood is in you." Ease beat his chest lightly. "Let the whole village know. I am not just your son, the best wrestler this village has ever seen," he continued boasting. "If only he knew how insignificant he is compared to you, he wouldn't be so proud of himself." Peter, who had gone through rigorous training with Chickadibia, said, standing beside Chickadibia, who said nothing but smile at Ease's display of ignorance. "The time will come, but until then I have to stay away from wrestling," Chickadibia replied. As the sun dipped low over the village rooftops, casting long golden shadows across the dusty path, Chickadibia skipped happily home from the village square after parting ways with his only friend Peter. Turning the corner near the old palm grove, he bumped into a tall man with a hard face and eyes that studied him like a hawk. He staggered back a little, startled. "Watch where you're going," the man muttered but didn't move aside. His eyes stayed on Chickadibia, narrowing as if trying to place a memory. "What's your name, boy?" the man asked, his voice low and gruff. "Chickadibia," he replied firmly and unmoved. The man's jaw tightened. "Chickadibia," he echoed, tasting the name. The man's eyes flashed. "Humph." He took a step back, arms crossed. "You look like him. They have the same sharp eyes. Same boldness." Chickadibia didn't know what to say. His heart beat a little faster. He could feel something strange emitting from the man, like the man was angry with him. "Who is your mother?" he asked, still glaring at him. Silence hung between them for a moment. Then the man looked away, muttering, "Be careful who you remind people of, boy. The dead don't always rest quietly." And just like that, he walked away, his shadow stretching behind him like a ghost. Chickadibia stood still, already aware of who the man was. He turned and ran home, not looking back once. The wooden door creaks open as he enters the house, his feet dusty and feeling breathless as he steps in. I stood, arms folded tightly across my chest, and eyed him with worry and sternness. With a sharp voice I asked, "Chickadibia, where have you been? It's almost dark." Chickadibia, panting, eyes wide with looking at me. "Mother, wait. I was coming back since, but I saw my Uncle Keen at the square." "Uncle Keen? Whichy Keen? Your father's brother? I asked as fears crept in. Yes, mother, but he couldn't. He couldn't recognize me. He just looked at me and said I looked just like him, with the same sharp eyes and boldness, Chikadibia explained. And he also asked who my mother was. I became scared and asked him with a shaky voice. Did you tell him who I was? No, mother, I didn't. He walked away after glaring at me, he explained again. Don't worry, mother, he doesn't know I am his brother's son. I became calm but still scared. I never wanted my son to ever meet him. Henceforth, you need to be very careful around the village, especially at the village square. I'm not ready for any confrontation from Ikeen and his people, please. I pleaded with my son. Okay, mother, he said and sat down. I sighed in relief, looking at my son, who didn't seem moved. Go and clean up while I serve dinner, I said. The next day, I decided to go to the market to buy some foodstuffs that we needed. Chikadibia insisted that he would go with me. I've never been to the market since we came to the village. I'd like to experience it with you, he said, pleading. All right, let's go, I agreed, and we both left the house in good spirits. In the warm, dusty air of the bustling village market, Chikadibia walked hand in hand with me as we weaved between stalls. The market was alive with the clatter of metal pots, the shrill cries of hawkers, and the aroma of roasted corn and pepper soup. I was busy bargaining over some tomatoes when a man suddenly stepped into our path. His face twisted in surprise, then suspicion. It was Mr. Okafor, a long-time friend of Ikeen. His eyes widened as he stared at me and my son. Is this not Iamide? He asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. You're supposed to be dead. He stuttered, pointing a finger at me. Chikadibia stared up at the man, confused and at what he was saying. I narrowed my eyes but said nothing. I bought my tomato, gathered my goods, and held my son's hand. Come, my son, let us go home, I said calmly and walked away with my son. Mr. Okafor watched us walk away, his chest heaving. He turned on his heel and ran, sandals slapping against the red earth. Dust trailed behind him as he made straight for Ikeen's house. He burst into his friend's house without knocking. Ikeen, he shouted. You won't believe who I saw in the market. Iamide and a little boy whom I suspect to be her son, alive. I saw them with my own eyes, he said breathlessly. Ikeen looked up, startled. The color drained from his face. Ikeen slowly rose from the wooden stool where he had been shelling groundnuts, the clatter of a metal bowl falling from his lap echoing in the small room. Alive, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure it was Iamide? Okafor nodded vigorously. I swear on my father's grave, Ikeen. It was Iamide, and she was with a small boy child. She was holding him by the hand. I saw them with my two eyes. Not in a dream, not in a shadow, but flesh and blood, Okafor explained with wide eyes. Ikeen sank back into the stool, his face troubled. But how? How did she survive the mysterious forest? No ordinary person has ever survived it. Silence settled between them for a moment. The air grew thick with tension and the muffled sounds of the village drifted through the open window. Finally, Ikeen stood and began pacing back and forth. This changes things, he muttered. If she's back with that child, it means the prophecy will come through. You think she remembers anything about the prophecy? Okafor asked, lowering his voice. Ikeen gave him a sharp look. Iamide was never a fool. If she kept quiet all this time she has been in this village, it was for a reason. And that reason is definitely for her son. So what do we do? Okafor asked. Ikeen paused. We wait. Watch her. Find out where she's staying. If she starts talking, trying to expose what happened some years ago, we'll need to silence her and that boy permanently. Tomorrow night you go. Take 3 boys from the square. Watch her house. Watch who visits. If she steps out with that child, I want to know where she goes and who she talks to. Okafor hesitated, then nodded. And if she tries to leave the village? Ikeen's voice dropped to a whisper. Then we'll make sure she doesn't reach the road. Ikeen's compound was quiet, but inside his private hut, lantern light flickered over a calabash of palm wine and a small iron box on the floor. Ikeen leaned over the table, his brows furrowed, chewing on a stick of bitter cola. Okafor stood nearby, shifting his weight nervously from foot to foot. "I told you," Ikeen said, his voice low and cold. "We should have searched everywhere in that forest for her, but you refused, saying she can't survive. But now see, Iamide has returned to destroy me." Okafor cleared his throat. "Should we inform the others about her return?" Ikeen slammed his fist on the table, making the wine in the calabash jump. "She won't escape me this time. I'll make sure I end her and that son of hers." Okafor nodded. "You want me to follow her to keep an eye on her?" "No," Ikeen said slowly. "We'll be smarter than that." He reached for the iron box on the floor and opened it. Inside was a bundle of old papers, faded with age, and beneath them, a small black pouch tied with red string. Okafor's eyes widened. "Ikeen, no. You said we wouldn't touch that again. That it was buried." "This isn't politics anymore," Ikeen said, untying the pouch. "This is war. And war doesn't care for rules." Inside the pouch was a small carved idol, slick with oil and wrapped in black cloth. Ikeen set it down carefully and began murmuring incantations in a language older than either of them had been taught, a language for silence, fear, and forgetting. Okafor took a step back. "Do you plan to curse her?" Ikeen's eyes glinted. "No. I plan to make sure she disappears with her son for real this time. And not even the gods will tell where she went." He smiled. "But first, we need to know where she sleeps." He looked up at Okafor. Soon the sun had begun its slow descent behind the tall palm trees as Chikadibia and I left the market. Chikadibia glanced up at me. "Mother, who was that man?" I didn't answer immediately. My face was tight, eyes focused straight ahead to the part that led to our house. "He was a friend of your Uncle Ikeen," I said finally. "Someone we hoped never to see again." Chikadibia didn't understand, but he knew not to ask further. Because whenever I spoke like that, it meant something serious. I paused and looked around carefully the moment we got to the house. It was quiet, and everything was just as we had left them. I unlocked the door and we stepped inside. I bolted the door and used one of the wooden stills to block the entrance. "Chikadibia, come. Sit," I said with a low but firm voice. He sat cross-legged on the mat, curious, and he stared at me. "Do you remember when I said I'll tell you all you need to know about you?" I asked gently. Chikadibia nodded his head slowly. "And I said I'll wait till whenever you're ready." "Yes," I said, eyes distant. "That night was the most terrifying night of my life," I said and continued. Finally, I told him everything he needed to know about his birth, and how his father lost his life because of Ikeen's greed to become the future king of the village. "My father?" Chikadibia asked, eyes wide. "You mean my father lost his life because of my Uncle Ikeen, and you had to endure such suffering in the forest just to protect me?" "Yes," I muttered. My voice broke, and I closed her eyes to stop the tears from dropping. Chikadibia reached for her hand. "So why did we come back? Why didn't you refuse and stand on your words when I said we should come to the village?" I opened my eyes. This time it was hard and resolute. "Because the prophecy must be fulfilled. Your father died protecting us. And now, it's time to finish what Ikeen started." A knock sounded on the door. My body tensed, and Chikadibia stood up immediately, taking his stance like a warrior ready for an attack. There was another knock on the door, louder this time. I rose slowly, my hand reaching for the cutlass behind the door. The knock came again, 3 short raps, then silence. I motioned for Chikadibia to stay quiet and wait. I stepped softly to the door, pressing my ear to the wood. "Who is it?" called out, voice firm. There was a pause. Then came a familiar voice, hushed but urgent. "It's me, Baba. Open the door, quick." Relief washed over my body, but only slightly. Baba was the only trusted elder I had known since I got married to my husband and came to the village. I unbolted the door just enough to peek through. It was indeed Baba, hunched and breathing heavily, with his walking stick tucked under his arm. "Baba, what is it?" Elle asked, stepping aside to let him in. "They know you're here," he whispered as he entered. "Okafor went straight to your brother-in-law, Ikeen. People are talking already. They're saying you've returned from the grave." "I expected that," I replied, closing the door behind him. "You shouldn't have come out so openly, my daughter," Baba scolded gently. "Ikeen still controls the council. He hasn't changed. And if he knows you survived the forest, I do not care anymore. I'm tired of running and hiding from Ikeen and his men," I said, interrupting Baba. Silence fell. Chikadibia, still standing quietly on the mat, looked between the two of us. Then he spoke softly. "Mother, if we leave again, will they follow us?" I quickly crouched beside him and took his hand. "No, my son. This time we won't run." Baba's eyes flickered with fear and admiration. "Then you must act fast," he said. "Before nightfall, leave this place and come stay with me. Nobody comes close to my abode." He nodded. I began to pack our belongings and wrapped them in cloth. I turned to Chikadibia. "Get ready, my dear. We're leaving this place to stay with Baba, not to hide but to prepare for your future." That night, a heavy silence settled over the village. The moon hung behind a veil of clouds, offering just enough light for shadows to move unseen. Okafor crouched beneath the mango tree near the footpath that led to my house, flanked by 3 young men, Ifani, Solomon and Jude. Local touts who answered to coin more than conscience. He whispered instructions. "Keep your eyes on that house. No talking. No smoking. No stupid movements. If she leaves or if anyone comes, I want to know. Understand?" "Yes, we do," they nodded. He slipped them a folded note. "If anything happens, send this to me with that small boy near the stream. He'll know where to find me." With that, Okafor melted into the night, back to Ikeen's compound. The 3 boys settled in different positions. One behind the low cassava shrubs, another crouched near the broken fence behind the house, and the third, Jude, lay flat on his stomach by the back path. For over an hour nothing happened. The light inside my house flickered gently, then went dark. Crickets sang. An owl hooted. The air was thick with dew and suspicion. But around midnight the movement began. I opened the back window and looked around. Jude froze, narrowing his eyes. I emerged from the window, holding my wrapped property tightly. Beside me was Chikadibia, yawning, blinking sleep from his eyes. I looked around carefully, then stepped onto the narrow bush path that led away from the main road in the opposite direction of the market, toward the old man's house. From his hiding place, Jude slowly backed away and whistled softly. The others emerged. Ifani whispered, "They're moving." Jude nodded. "Toward this part." Solomon grinned. "Should we stop them?" "No," said Ifani. "We follow. Okafor wants to know who she talks to." They crept after me and my son, keeping to the shadows of the night. But my sense of hearing, sharp as ever, I paused at a bend in the path. My ears pricked. Something didn't feel right. I turned around, scanning the dark trees. Chikadibia held my hand. "Mother, I heard something," he said. I knelt down and whispered, "Stay quiet. We're not alone." Without a word, I pushed him gently into the tall grass and ducked beside him, our breaths shallow. The boys passed by moments later, not seeing us, too focused, too eager. As their footsteps faded, I went from the tall grasses and turned back toward my house. "Change of plans, son," I whispered. "We leave at dawn. Before they know it, we're gone." Chikadibia looked at me wide-eyed. "Leave to where, mother?" "To Irako," she said. "To the only one we can trust, the one who will show you to the right part." I held my son by the hand and we ran back to the house, scared, not for me, but for my son, who was his uncle's target. "Mother, why don't we summon Irako? That way we will be protected from the people that are after us," Chikadibia said. I kept quiet, listening attentively to the sounds outside the house. "Quiet," I whispered with a finger on my lips. What are you going to do now? She has escaped, I heard one of the boys say. Chief Okafor will not take it lightly with us if he finds out that we missed them. What do we do now? Another one said. This is a bad market. I'm not even worried about Chief Okafor. It is Ikeen that I'm scared of. He might not let us go if he finds out we messed this up, another one said again. What kind of problem is this? How did that woman and her son manage to escape us? They quarrel amongst themselves. We need to agree on what to tell them, and it must be convincing enough for them to believe. After all, I heard she's a stranger to the village, and doesn't know anywhere around. That's true. We can easily tell them that she boarded a bus to the city with her son. That way, Ikeen and Okafor can be at ease for now till we find a way to resolve this, one of them suggested. They all agreed and left my compound one after the other. I stood up slowly from the corner of the house we were hiding. Peeping through the patched hole in the door, I saw them leaving, walking into the darkness of the night. Mother, I think we should summon Irako. We need his guidance, Chikadibia said again. Shaking my head, I replied to him. No, we will go to Baba's place and stay for the night. Then leave for the forest first thing in the morning. Okay, mother, he nodded. Quietly, we stepped out of the house again, but this time through the door I looked around carefully, making sure that this time, no one was lurking around somewhere. I held my son by the hand, carrying my load on my head, and stepped back into the bush part that leads to Baba's house. Baba lived at the edge of the village, which was almost the outskirts of the village. There he lived alone in a patched house just like ours. We met Baba standing outside his house, obvious that he had been waiting, expecting us. What happened? He asked the moment we got close. We were followed by Ikeen's boys, so we hid in the bush and had to return home, I explained. Baba shook his head. I knew he would do such, him and his friend Okafor. They will never change from being who they are. He said and invited us into his house, where we slept till the next day. Very early the next morning, my son and I left the house barefoot and full of urgency. We dashed into the dense green forest, his small hand tightly gripping mine. My wrapper flutters behind me as I run, guiding him through familiar trails. Sunlight filters through the thick canopy of trees, casting golden patterns on the forest floor. In the distance, towering above all stands the great Irako tree, ancient, immense, and silent, its trunk wide and strong like a guardian spirit. This sacred place once was our home, a place of stories, shelter, and ancestral peace. Now we return, seeking refuge once more under the great Irako's timeless protection. A few years later, it was time to crown the new king from my husband's family. Ikeen had made preparations for his coronation because he believed that Chikadibia and I had gone back to the city and never returned. The boys he sent to monitor us the night we escaped from the village back to the forest couldn't tell him the truth, so they lied to him that I took my son and ran out of the village back to the city. Ikeen laughed hard, hitting his chest, boasting that nobody could stop him from becoming the king. Not even the tibia or prophecy could stand in his way. The town crier went around the village, announcing the date for the coronation and asking everybody to prepare. Meanwhile, Peter, Chikadibia's friend, who used to be a chubby boy, now a strong warrior, never stopped meeting with my son at their secret training ground. He passed every information we needed to prepare for the coronation day. Your uncle is still parading himself as the next king of our village. I heard he hosted the council of elders in his house some days ago to prepare for a grand ceremony, Peter said. When is the coronation? Chikadibia asked. It's in a week, Peter answered. I just pray and hope he doesn't become the king, else this village will perish. With confidence, the gods will not allow it, my son responded. They chatted for a little while in the bush before parting ways. I'll see you in a week, my friend. Until then, be safe, Chikadibia said, parting Peter by the shoulder, a leaving-jeft for the forest before Peter could say anything. Soon he was standing before me, explaining everything that Peter had told him. Then it is time, the great Irako said. I shall prepare you for battle and train you to become unbeatable. Your uncle is a strong opponent, but he shall be nothing compared to you. The sun rose blood orange over the edge of the forest, casting long shadows from the Iroko tree, its bark gnarled like the wrinkles of 1,000 ancestors. It was here, at the base of the sacred tree, that Chikadibia, barely 16, faced the warrior the great Iroko. He had not slept the night before. His uncle Ikin had made his intentions clear. Power must pass to him alone. With Chikadibia's father mysteriously dead and his mother living in the forest in silence, the boy stood in the way of ambition fed by envy and blood. Word had spread that Ikin would soon claim the throne. Unless, of course, Chikadibia proved himself in the ancient rite of challenge. But tradition demanded readiness. You do not walk into a lion's den without first learning to bare your own teeth. The warrior before him, great Iroko, was like a carved stone, tall, scarred, with eyes like still coals. "If you fight with rage," he said, circling Chikadibia, "you will fall. If you fight with purpose, you will rise. Now wrestle." They clashed in the dust, muscle against muscle, sweat gleaming on their dark skin. Chikadibia grunted with effort, thrown once, twice, but never stayed down. I sat and watched silently around the tree, watching not for victory, but for something more sacred, a boy stepping into his legacy. "You are not your father," Iroko growled, holding Chikadibia in a lock. "I know," Chikadibia panted, pushing up with his legs, flipping the warrior off balance. "I am the one who will finish what he could not." At last, Iroko stepped back and raised his hand. "You are ready." Chikadibia's chest heaved. Behind him, the Iroko tree whispered in the morning wind, its leaves trembling like spirits stirred from slumber. The roots beneath his feet were deep, the blood in his veins ancient. He bowed his head. He would not go to battle alone. I watched, eyes full of fire and pain. I called him to sit beside me. "You know what tomorrow is," I said. "I do," Chikadibia replied, voice as calm as the forest before a storm. "You will face your uncle. He is still the champion. If you lose, you may not be alive. But if you win, the throne returns to truth," he finished. "And prophecy breathes again." The next day, dressed in nothing but the loincloth of forest warriors and a necklace of carved bone, Chikadibia walked barefoot into the village, accompanied by myself, his mother, Baba, and Peter. People gasped. Whispers danced on the wind. "Is it? Could it be him?" Uncle Ikin, now graying and broad like an old lion, sat upon the carved stool of kings. When he saw Chikadibia, his jaw tightened. "You dare return," he said. "I do more than dare," Chikadibia replied. "I claim the right of Igbamba. I challenge you, uncle to nephew. Blood to blood. If you are king, you will stand. If you are not..." Drums. Dust rising. The wrestling circle was drawn. Sacrifices were offered to the gods. The village elders nodded. The oracle appeared, blind and bent, yet strong with the voice of thunder. "The circle decides," she said. "No weapons. Only strength. Only truth. Wrestle until the ground claims one." The fight began with roars and slams. Chikadibia moved like wind through trees, agile, fierce, and unpredictable. Ikin was strength and rage, every strike thunderous. The crowd swelled with chants and fear. They fought for hours. Skin scraped. Blood mingled with the earth. Then, with the move taught only to heirs, Chikadibia flipped his uncle over his shoulder in the sacred Ukuta spiral, pinning him to the ground with the weight of legacy. Silence. Then cheers, drums, ululations. The oracle stood, arms raised. "The son of thunder has risen. Let the land breathe again." That night, under the horned moon, Chikadibia was crowned with the staff of Eziakachi. Iamide. His mother wept as the village roared. But Chikadibia only looked to the forest, his other home, his training ground, and the place that made him king. The forest took a boy. The village received a warrior. Prophecy was fulfilled. End. Please click on the subscribe button for more interesting stories.